right, Andreas, because you made me say that. Andreas, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series. It's great to have you here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
And a shout out to Matthew Chavira and Ron Shabbat for recommending you. And I'm excited about meeting with you and you sharing some of your experiences and insights because they're important in this day and age right now. And so if you could briefly, keyword there is briefly, introduce yourself. We'll get to the business stuff in a minute, but who is Andreas and your family and where are you from? Where do you live now? A little bit about that.
Sure, happy to. Hey, so my name is Andreas Welsch. Professionally, let's start there, and I'll give you
We'll get to professionally. Let's talk about
Sure.
you and family and stuff.
Sure. So look, I'm originally from Germany. That's where the accent is definitely from. And I've been living in the US for about 13 years now. And wife, two kids, no golden retriever, no goldfish, but never say never.
Is that a hope that you're putting out there?
Maybe more so the hope of my kids than of myself.
That's what I figured. How old are your kids?
So my kids are 2 and 4. They're keeping us busy and on our toes.
And you live right near Philadelphia, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly, just outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. Is there a reason you ended up in Philly?
So mainly for work, but you said we'll get to that in a minute. But that definitely makes it a lot easier staying in touch with family, with friends in Europe. So it's a great place to be. It's obviously very close to New York City, to DC, to all the great places on the East Coast, and that's why we love it.
It's definitely a passionate city. There's no doubt about it. So all I can say is Achtung bitte. Let's get started. Speaking of your kids, what were you like as a kid, as a teenager? Were you like the explorer? Were you building computers or creating models, hackathons? Did you read a lot, or were you playing a musical instrument or sports? What were you like?
So I feel like I've always had the curiosity and a passion for understanding how things work. So even long before I was a teenager, there are pictures of me trying to take apart toy cars and things you could write on. I wasn't always so great at putting it back together. I ended up with a bunch of pieces in my hand. But definitely there was the curiosity of always trying to make sense of things and trying to understand how things work. I've played keyboards and the accordion actually since I was 6, and I've taught myself to play drums and percussion and ukulele and the flute and a bunch of other instruments. And part of the reason why I love making music is I love seeing progress. I love seeing the improvement, the little steps that you make are getting better from week to week, better than last month, better than last quarter. And that's really what drives me and what motivates me when I make music.
Do your kids want to play instruments too?
I hope so. So far, they like banging on the drums and hitting the keys on the keyboard. Luckily, there's not too much that can break. Most of the things are made to be beaten and hit on. So that's good. But let's see.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's look a little bit at your education journey. It was interesting combo of IT, communication, and marketing, development, innovation. In Germany, actually, you were educated, if I'm not mistaken. And was that always the plan? And what intrigued you to go down that path?
So I would say my education and career journey even have been non-traditional in many different ways. Like I said, education for me was in Germany. I moved over to the States when I was 25, so most of that happened in Germany. And the plan was actually quite different from where I am today, but that's the exciting part. That's what I also get excited about if I look back and I think back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So, for example, I started working in Germany when I was 16. So there's a concept called an apprenticeship where you spend 2 or 3 days in a business and you spend the other 2 days at school learning the tools of the trade, if you will, and then you get to apply them. And I did that in a medium-sized IT company. And I would say that's where probably my, again, curiosity was fueled, but also satisfied more on that engineering, problem-solving type skills. But I saw that a lot of new colleagues were joining fresh from college. They had a degree, they had less experience than me, but they got better opportunities from the start, a better salary, more responsibility, and so on. So I figured, well, I should do something about that. So I went back to school while working full time. And I actually had a really good relationship with my manager at the time in IT, but I was concerned that if I told him about me going back to school and I missed a deliverable and a project at work, that somehow he might think it was because I was studying later. I wasn't paying as much attention at work as I was paying attention studying. So I actually didn't tell anybody until I was almost finished. And they were all surprised to hear that, hey, for the last 4 years, I've been going back to school. And the vacation that I took was actually not lying on the beach, but was getting ready for an exam and showing up there. So then fast forward a couple of years and we moved to the US, and I had joined SAP, one of the largest enterprise application software providers in the world. And I was working in IT. And I wanted to take on more responsibility and get into a first level leadership role. But in IT, the business side was very, very far away from us. So, and far away from anything that we're doing. So I decided, well, what about if I go back to school and I focus more on business? So getting my MBA, and this time I actually did tell my manager, and it worked out really, really well. And that opened up a lot more opportunities, especially at SAP as a global multinational company. And it allowed me to combine what I've learned in IT with now business, with new concepts of software development and delivery, cloud computing, these kind of things. Got connected to our CTO, worked for him for about 2 years. And then, changes happen frequently in global organizations and corporations. So I got the opportunity to join a new team that was formed around machine learning at the time, 2016. It's a really new idea and concept. And the idea was, well, we want to help our customers use more of that technology, but also need to educate them. How is it different from traditional programming? What are the business benefits and so on?
Mm-hmm.
That spent 14 years in an internal role, seeing a customer for the first time, being up there, presenting, walking through slides, getting questions, not always the easy ones. It was a fantastic learning experience. It was very uncomfortable. Many days it was very uncomfortable, but it was a great growth opportunity. And so then, yeah, go ahead.
So sorry. So did you join SAP in Germany first and then came here, or SAP in the States?
So I was working for the company where I did my apprenticeship, and we got acquired by SAP in 2010. So
Okay.
Before the acquisition, I had already asked my manager if my wife and I could move over to the States and help align IT strategy for the business a little better and a little more closely with our colleagues in the US. So acquisition happened. We were able to still move over. And I got to work for SAP, and I'm still working for SAP right now. Now, so, from that customer-facing experience and seeing what customers are looking for, what businesses are looking for, what leaders are looking for in optimizing their business.
Mm-hmm.
And the next question was, well, how can we at SAP incorporate all of that in our standard software? So it was an opportunity to lead what's called the Center of Excellence, an organization that focuses not only on data science, but also the governance, the enablement, the upskilling of teams, and prioritizing what are the things we should be building. And that was a super exciting role to move into and apply some of the things that I've learned. And then for the last 2 years, I've been fortunate to lead SAP's global marketing team to help our customers understand, where do you get AI from SAP? What's the business benefit? What's the value? And also prioritize, what should SAP do? The last thing I want to say, because I guess you weren't expecting such a long answer, is throughout the last couple of years, right, I've developed a passion for the topic of AI, and that's where you see a lot of my content on LinkedIn focus on how can businesses, how can leaders adopt AI and do that successfully and with confidence. Because while it is such a great topic and a hype topic, I think there's a lot of confusion still, and there's a lot more clarity and a lot more confidence needed. So that's what I want to help leaders accomplish outside of my 9-to-5 role.
So AI stands for all interested, right?
Absolutely. Everybody should.
Absolutely interested, it stands for. So you work with Vivek Bapat?
Yeah, I know of him. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because you mentioned marketing and whatnot. So one thing I want to say, well, there's a lot of things I want to ask, but we founded our firm, Fifth Element, on the basis that leaders and their organizations can do way better economically when they're doing good at the same time. You've actually, congrats, first of all, on being recognized as a leader in AI, and that's something to be proud of for sure. It's a fast-paced world. There's a lot of turbulence going on. Describe a little bit, because you talked about the customer experience and leading the AI efforts. Describe a little bit of how you balance using your expertise and your knowledge in AI to make an economic impact, but at the same time, it's actually doing good for business, for people, etc.
So as I was thinking about this, right, to me, that is very close to that saying about love, right? Um, you have to, or to multiply it, you have to divide it. And I think that the same applies to that knowledge as well when it comes to AI and how I think about it and how I approach it. Because I think as much as we talk about AI and the systems and machines and everything, it's actually humans that work with those machines. It's humans who design them, who are influenced by them in one way or another. So to me, it's actually the human and the humans that we need to put at the center of this. And then there we balance it, right? And on one hand, definitely there's the goal of greater economic impact and participating in those opportunities, but it also has to happen in balance with the individuals being influenced by it, working on it, and so on. So I think the other aspect of that is that AI brings change. It inevitably brings change. Some of the change might be super good and you're super excited about. Some of the change you might be a little wary of and a little suspicious, right? I've always been doing it in a certain way for the last 10 years or 15 years. Now this AI thing tells me I should do it a different way.
Right.
I don't trust it, right? So I trust my gut, but I don't trust this thing unless I understand why it does it, or it does it always and it does it always perfectly. On the other hand, I think also change can happen in different ways. Some of it can be very subtle. Some of it can be very rapid, like you've seen it in the last year and a half, things like ChatGPT, lots of momentum, everything happening in the industry. Some of it might even be disruptive to your business, maybe even to your role. So balancing that with the interests of the company, of the individuals, and I think that's where the magic happens, if you will, to get it right.
Do you find that leaders of companies are thinking about the social, environmental, the human impact all the time while looking at AI being good for business too?
I think it depends on leaders individually. It also depends to some extent on the business or the nature of the business that they're in. I remember being in conversations where back in 2016, 17, business leaders would say, well, if we implement this, how much money can we save? How many people, do we no longer need in our business? And while I think economically that's a very rational approach, if you look at maybe some of the responsibility that you have as a business, it might not be as responsible, right? So I think over the last couple of years, I've seen the discussion shift more towards how can we help our people do more than they have been able to do before? How can we free them up? How can we give them more time? How can we take out some of that indeed boring, laborious, repetitive work so
Right.
that they can talk to their customers, so they can work with other people and have conversations and do what they're really good at, what we are all really good at as people. And it's not the copy and paste, and it's not, these little things that
Right.
do eat a lot of our time.
Well, what I find about that is I think we had the same conversations when the internet came in. Like, oh my God, it's going to take all these jobs. How's this going to, what's going to happen? It's good, but it's like, and I guarantee you, people, it's going to take away all the jobs that you don't want to do, and you can only do all the great jobs and all the great thinking, and you go to the beach even or whatever. It seemed like that there was that conversation before, but I see it's definitely, like you said, happening a lot faster and stronger now. I did want to ask you, they say the fourth industrial revolution is about technology because the fifth is supposed to be about humanity. We focus on that all the time, impact and talent, and related to having partnerships. Now you've engaged, managed, I wouldn't say evangelized about AI with stakeholders, and there's all kinds of stakeholders, internal, external, business leaders, their teams, employees, the shareholders, obviously, government, community, etc. And you've done it for multiple Fortune 500 client companies. How do you think about it? How do you minimize conflict? the fear of the change, so much to learn. How am I going to even keep up type of thing? And yet capitalize on the excitement at the same time of what can really happen here.
So I think as a leader, to me, it's really all about caring. I think you have to care for your team. You have to care for the people whose lives you're entrusted with. And you need to realize that everybody is different. Right now, I'm not the first person to say this. It's not all my advice, but it's definitely something that I'm trying to live by, and some of the values that I try to live and lead by. And I think, with everybody obviously showing up to work differently, that means, again, like I was saying, some people are super excited about the opportunity and getting to work on this stuff and getting to work with this stuff, and others are really concerned that this might really mean it's impacting my job. My job might go away. Maybe I need to learn something new, even if I'm, still in that job. And I'm actually pretty happy with the way things are going. So everybody's different. I think the other part, going back really quick to the previous question, is I think there's an abundance of mundane tasks. And every time there's a new technology, there's this notion in the market that, like you're saying, it's going to help you get rid of everything that's boring. Fine, that might even be true, but then there's the next higher level of tasks, and that's boring again, and so on. So I think we're never going to run out of mundane tasks. It's just the definition of what is mundane.
People aren't going to be happy to hear that part.
I know, but it might even be real. So, right. Now, coming back to the other question, I think as a leader, it's your job to care. Now, I think caring doesn't mean that you have to neglect your business objectives. I think that there would be a too extreme part of caring or neglecting those objectives. But I think it means to genuinely seek the best outcomes for your team members. Now, fear of change, I think, it isn't just limited to AI. So take a larger corporation. They go through change all the time. And the big change makes the headlines, a new CEO, a major restructuring, whatever that may be, those sort of things. But I think even within the company, change can happen often. So it's your role, it's then also, your role as a leader to seek the best outcomes for your team members. And that's where I think it comes to learning. And a key part of that is making time and giving your employees and your team members time to learn. Make space, give them space to learn individually and be offline for an afternoon, but attend that virtual training or that class, or read up on a topic. And I think it also means learning from each other. So setting up some dedicated learning sessions. What is it that you're working on, and maybe how are you using AI there? Encouraging your team members to use things like ChatGPT and Bard and Bing and many, many other tools, certainly within reason, within policy, if you have one, or think about defining one. What is acceptable use of AI? What does it look like for us? But I think encouraging team members to make their experiences, to learn about these tools and do it now at this point in time is super critical, because the head start that you think others might have is only 12, 13, 14 months at best, right? It's not 5 years, 10 years, when we're not in that lifespan yet, if you will. So a couple of months at this point doesn't really make a difference. And so I think at the end of it, then also for me, it comes down to psychological safety, to communication, and the things that we know that are going to change. Talk about them, discuss them with your team members. What does it mean, right? Where is this going? Where could this go? And also help them prepare for whatever the next step is, and be relevant, develop relevant skills, so that they can participate in the bright future that AI is going to bring us.
Yeah, and I didn't even have to prompt you to say leaders who care. That was fantastic. It's interesting what industries AI will impact the fastest, the strongest, type of thing. And we found that it is a unique but important skill, like you said, for leaders to care about the well-being of their people. And well-being is financial, physical, and mental. And as we all know, mental health is a big deal these days for all sorts of reasons. In my mind, and then get your opinion on this too, I think AI has maybe the biggest unbelievable positive potential for healthcare and our own well-being in so many ways. but as well as for income. Can you share how do you create a little bit expanded on what you're saying before, an AI mindset and culture that recognizes the individual, recognizes the team, and as a result, you get maximum business results?
That's an awesome question. So that's a topic I'm really, really passionate about, because I think we need to make AI a lot more tangible and a lot more concrete. What we see in the news is either the headlines, the FOMO, like you were saying earlier, are we headed towards artificial general intelligence and the doom in everything, right? That AI is going to replace people over time. I don't think we are. On the other hand, you're seeing the Hollywood movies, everything from Terminator to Matrix and more recent things, where it's more of a dystopia. So I think you need to bring people into that reality of what is AI actually today, what does it do, what does it do for you, and help them understand how can they use it, how can they use it today, how does it help them in their business, in their role, and show a genuine and empathetic interest in helping them understand that. Because if they're able to understand this nebulous, blurry concept of AI, that there is some kind of an intelligence, but it's not human, in the end, it recognizes patterns in data. That's all it does, and it makes predictions. So it's scientifically pretty simple, if you will, or from an engineering point of view, there's a way to in it. It's not, some overlord thing. So it can be pretty tangible. So then if you understand what does it do? It can match things, it can recommend things, it can predict things. That grounds you a little more. So in many of the tasks that we see and that we do in a business, right, there is some level of either generating information, text, meeting minutes, job descriptions, whatever that may be. There's a good amount of summarizing information as well. There are predictions, like I said, there are recommendations. What should you do next? What should maybe your customer buy next? The typical e-commerce example, people who've bought this hammer have also bought this toolbox. That's AI, right? So again, making it tangible. And from there, then you can understand in your business, in your role, what are the opportunities that I should be looking for, maybe. So as you come across new tools, as you come across news, you can better decide, is it something that's either really important and even something we should be doing, and where and how does it help us? I think that's the part of AI literacy, AI fluency, and AI mindset that is so critical, because we're only going to see more AI entering business. Not everything will be apparent as AI. Many of the things will be subtle, and there'll be AI behind the scenes. So just understanding what it is and how you work with it, I think that's the key part.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, and you triggered when you had that great response. We find that people that are working, two things happen when they go home. They either say, "Oh man, work sucks. My boss wasn't good to me. I'm tired. Da da da. Give me a beer. I'm going to sit on the sofa." Or they come home and say, "Hey guys, let's have dinner. I got to tell you what happened." And we've been hearing that. What an opportunity. It's always been an opportunity in some ways with more training, but what an opportunity to engage. Obviously, the tech people are engaged pretty well in it already, but other people, for lack of a better description, the non-tech people that are given the opportunity to learn, like you're talking about, and benefit from it, and go home and tell their kids what I learned in AI today. So the kids now are thinking, wow, mom and dad are pretty cool. They know AI and they're teaching me this, versus like the dad or mom saying, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so the kid doesn't talk to them maybe as much, not necessarily on purpose, maybe as much. And so it really hits home when you say that, because how well being positive is that for a company or leaders of a company to give people the opportunity without judging them, and who some might learn faster, some slower, but to make that happen for them, and the feeling they have of going home and, man, listen, you could hear what we did today. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was last year that I read a couple of examples where there were stories in the news of parents authoring or co-authoring children's novels and stories, right? With the help of ChatGPT, with the help of some of the image generators, DALL-E and Midjourney and the like. So I think in terms of being creative in teaching skills, I think that there's a huge opportunity for parents, not only to teach the skills that your children are going to need anyways. And if you have teenagers and they're in school, I'm sure they're using ChatGPT and the like already, but to also guide them in a way, because you know, we know this. If you looked at ChatGPT and worked with it, or read some of the news, it isn't always perfect. It isn't always correct. Sometimes it goes off on a tangent.
It's
Sometimes,
human.
yeah, yeah, right? It's been trained on human created data for the most part. So that's why many of the biases and the behaviors are in there that we see, or the predictions of the next words. But I think it's also important to talk about the limitations, and that's the opportunity for parents as well to say, here's how you can use it. Look, let's see where the limitations are, so you know that you shouldn't use it for XYZ. Math, for example, right? So in terms of, you know, teaching, interacting with your kids, showing them something new and cool, and also for you to get your hands on
Right.
technology and work with it, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. It definitely
Yeah.
democratizes it.
Yeah, me too. It's great. And you know that we're even talking about, you know, little avatars in AI replacing maybe the teddy bear, just can't be hugged as much. But as a buddy for a kid, teddy bear can't talk back, but that little avatar can be the best buddy for mental health, even talking to that teddy bear, but it's a live AI teddy bear. And it seems, and for senior people to have somebody to talk to, there's so many things that are really incredible for humanity.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely
Yeah.
going to be interesting.
So I want to go, as we kind of wind down here a little bit, I want to go back to your musical aptitudes and everything. You're like, for example, we engage, obviously everything we do has diversity in it. You know, not just executive searches we do, but impact projects we do. Diversity is fantastic to embrace. Different foods, different cultures, different everything. Knowledge, it's a great thing. With your experience as a multi-instrumentalist, it's a long word, describe your thoughts on, because you kind of alluded to it before when we talked about music, on how the diversity of skill sets, including, you know, being about a bigger cause, and how music and playing music also brings diverse experience to whatever you're doing in business or whatnot, just in how you learn and how you engage, etc.
Music is one of my most favorite analogies for the point you're trying to get across, or are
Well,
looking to share.
instrumentalist took me a while. That was a long word.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think there are a lot of parallels to making music, especially making music in an orchestra. You have an objective, you have a goal, right? It might be a performance. And for any music to be rich, there are multiple different instruments. There are different voices, there are different tones, there are different levels, different octaves, everything. But you need skilled players that know their instrument and that know their part really, really well. And they all need to come together. They all need to play to the same beat. Okay, one person, you know, not being on the beat, you definitely hear it. Um, but that difference in skills, right? Whether it's your brass players, it's your woodwinds, it's your percussionists, they all need to come together. They all have a part to play. They all have a different and unique perspective on it. If you've ever played in a band or in an orchestra, you know the struggles. You know, who likes whom, what sections like whom. So the same thing here. But the important part is to really understand what is that bigger cause that we are going after, and get everybody rallied behind it so that you can deliver that exciting performance that has your audience standing up and giving you a standing ovation.
Yeah, I compare that a lot to sports. It's about the same thing, you know, working as a team. And the last part about that is the actual playing. You know, I had a teacher once talked about how dance was good to learn because it would help you with geometry. And actually the actual part of playing an instrument and how you have to think and whatnot also seems to have a big impact on thinking, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Key part.
Which I find super cool. Last part on this part here is one client told me once about the year 2020. He said it was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought that was really cool. And it's hard to believe that 21, 22, 23, we're like that far away from the pandemic, because it seems like yesterday and a long time ago at the same time. With all that and everything that now we're into 2024, what are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
So I think if we stay with the topic of AI, I think I'm very grateful as an industry that we've seen this hype over the last year, that it's a lot easier to use it, that people are thinking about it, that a lot more people are thinking about it. Again, coming back to the orchestra, in many, many different parts of the business, in many, many different parts and walks of life. That's super exciting, because that is something we shouldn't take for granted. At the end of 22, media analysts were already talking up the next AI winter. Investment would go down. There's not as much interest. We didn't see all the results we were looking for. ChatGPT came on the map and blew all these things out. So hopeful is what I am for seeing this now translating into something tangible, not just the apps that we use on our phone or the images we create just for fun, or to see what AI can actually do and how good I'm getting at creating these prompts, but something really tangible. If you look at business, to me, that means seeing these kinds of AI being used in the business, delivering benefits to the people that use them and to the businesses that use them, and also have that translate into benefits for customers. And we all are customers of some business. I think personally, I'm hopeful to help more people understand how they can be part of this big revolution, if you will. What AI means for them, how they can do it more successfully by bringing all the relevant people together, by prioritizing the things that make sense and not just throw money at it or go after it because it's the new thing. And from my experience, just sharing that and seeing more people implement these type of things successfully is what I'm very, very hopeful to see more of in 2024.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for being a leader who cares. And I really love the way you combine AI with people, with real life stuff. And I think, I mean, that's going to be great leadership for the future. So I appreciate you and I appreciate all that you've shared. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me.